Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. Welcome, everybody joining in live. We hope you're having a good, I was going to be really depressing to say end to your holiday. You might still have 2 weeks left. If that's you, fair play. If it's not, don't worry about it, because we're going to keep you company for the next hour talking about international teaching. Now, really, this show, when it was conceived, was about people who might be looking to go international and thinking about the things that they could think about or do or consider before taking the leap, in the process of taking the leap, and then actually once they get there. So in this show, we're going to talk about all the pros and cons, the pitfalls, the good things, the bad things, and everything in between. Hello, Electron. Electron has commented. Thanks for joining us, Electron, on Twitter. And I'm sure there'll be others joining us on YouTube, LinkedIn. If you want to make a comment at any point, question, throw it in there, and we'll do our best to answer it. Before I introduce my amazing panelists, this was not supposed to be a manel. We actually had Megan, who was going to be joining us, but unfortunately she's experiencing some Wi-Fi issues, so maybe she'll pop back up again later on. But I will introduce my amazing panelists in a minute. Before I do so, it would be remiss of me to not thank Hachette Learning for supporting all the shows on Teachers Talk Radio. If you fancy a bit of CPD and reading at some point, maybe before you go back to work or in the first few weeks, because you're a super keen bean and you want to get back on that CPD wagon, then definitely visit hachetteLearning.com. Check out all the books and stuff that they've got in there. They've got loads of brilliant stuff. And actually, we did a show on Monday on disciplinary literacy, primary school. So you can catch that one on YouTube. And there's a book coming out from Shireen Wilkinson of that very title, which is now available. As of midnight tonight, it's available on the Hachette Learning website. All right, I've got Jeff and I've got Simon. Jeff teaches out in Belgium, right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right. I'm an English teacher and upper school coordinator in Brussels.
Super. And how long have you been out there for?
I've been out now. I'm coming up to, in September, it will be the start of my 5th year there, after about 10 years, just over 10 years in England beforehand.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Simon?
Yeah, I'm in my 5th year here in Spain. I've done 4 years in Madrid, and then last year just made the move to the northwest, to a county called Galicia, and to a school in Coruña. So yeah, very, very happy. Great experience so far in Spain.
And the best part of your life really is, Simon, that you get to teach with me.
That is very true. Very true.
Teach being a sort of loose expression of what I attempt to do, but it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So yeah, that's the backstory. So obviously we'll talk maybe a little bit as we go through from a European perspective on things, but of course we're going to talk about other countries too, based on our knowledge. I mean, we're all on the international circuit, so we know lots and lots of people who've been in lots of different places and countries. So, all right, Jeff, I'll start with you then. Why did you decide to go abroad?
So it was a mixture of two things, really. There's a personal aspect of it. My wife is Belgian, but we were happily living in Essex. You know, I taught at an academy in Thurrock and really loved it. You know, it was a really positive school. The head teacher was amazing. I loved going to work, but we got engaged and we sat down. It wasn't just professional reasons, but it was just, we wrote down on a piece of paper one day all the pluses and minuses of staying in England and all the pluses and minuses of moving to Belgium. And Belgium slightly won, but you know, I really enjoyed my time in England, and I really enjoyed being a teacher in England. But there were things that were possibly unsustainable myself, that I was finding unsustainable myself, and I felt a bit guilty that I couldn't always give it my all. And I was interested. I've always been interested in teaching abroad. I'd done like the Erasmus Plus programs. I'd been to Turkey, Portugal, Cyprus for week exchanges. I did a gap year in New Zealand as a teaching assistant. But I was just, we just took the risk. It was quite an interesting time to make the change because I was ahead of year and I really wanted to give the school lots of notice. So I put my notice in December 2019 to give them all the time for September to find a replacement. And obviously COVID hit in February. So I quit, and we'd stopped the London apartment, we'd stopped all of the things, and we were in a real limbo for like months trying to find I was really scared actually about getting a job in Belgium, about being able to find one.
Yeah. But I mean, there aren't that many, are there? I mean, there aren't actually that as many in Europe as a whole compared to, say, Abu Dhabi or something. There seems to be tons of jobs going all the time, right? Europe can be a little bit more hit and miss. So when did your job come up early in that cycle between the January and the summer, or was it?
No, I think I applied. I applied to the European school system. I lived really close. Well, I live in a town called Aalst, a city called Aalst in Flanders, Dutch-speaking region of Belgium, and I was really, really interested in a Brussels job. My Dutch wasn't strong enough, still isn't strong enough to speak within the state system. My French was minimal as well. So even within Brussels, which is bilingual, I would struggle. Of course, I would never get a position within the state system. So it had to be an international school. And the European school system is a really interesting one. It's a lesser known system, I think. I'm just going to take a little bit of time just to explain, just a few seconds just to explain it. But it's basically a system that was set up in the 50s, originally in Luxembourg, to cater for the sons and daughters of EU workers. Now, over time, that expanded from its first school to include 13 schools within the system and dozens of other accredited schools across many, many countries of Europe. And what makes it unique is that it has its own baccalaureate, the European Baccalaureate, which is accepted in universities in Britain and all across the world, of course. And it's very unique because the school is divided into sections. So students are entitled to have their home system, their home language taught throughout the system. So, for example, we have in our school Dutch, Lithuanian, Finnish, Swedish. We have 9 sections in total. And the students get teachers from those countries to come and teach them. And by the end of the system, it's very linguistically based. By the end of the system, the students end up with, 3, 4. It's not unheard of to have students in 5 or 6 languages, from B level plus. It's crazy. It's a really amazing system. But has about, there's 12,000 students just in Brussels alone within this system. I mean, my school is 5,000 students from 3 to 18. I'm the upper school coordinator. I'm responsible for year 11, 12, and 13, and I have 1,000 students that are within those groups for their, it's like a school within itself, really. It's a massive system, system.
Fair play. Simon, what about you? You went to Madrid. Why did you move out there? Why did you decide to go international first off?
Yeah, I think you always have a little bit of a view of working abroad. You always have a little bit of you hear a lot of stories about people going abroad, and obviously the feedback from a lot of teachers is very, very positive in terms of some of the differences between obviously working at home back in the UK and working abroad. Obviously, it depends on each person, but I think just so many of the positives and the rewards from working abroad stood out to me as something that I really wanted to enjoy and to experience. And I think not only as a teacher, but also from a personal perspective, the experience you get as a person, for me, has really benefited my teaching to understand a different culture, different language, and different sort of mini cultures, even within Spain. Obviously, I spent 4 years in Madrid, and now I'm in Galicia. And you see those little different tweaks even within the same country. I really wanted to learn a different language. Spanish is obviously one of the most spoken languages in the world. So having that sort of skill set and challenge was something that definitely stood out to me. And yeah, obviously, we all love teaching, and to have a different experience of working abroad with students is something that I really wanted to undertake and to enjoy the journey. And yeah, I mean, to teach abroad, to be somewhere, in Europe and Spain, for me has been a great experience. And it's one that I think when you've taught in England and you go and teach abroad, that there's so many differences. There's so many differences and so many different pros and cons that you can get out of living abroad. Yeah, it's been a great experience so far, one that I've truly enjoyed.
And Simon, you have the accolade of being the only English person who can speak Spanish in Spain. I'm being slightly sarcastic there, but no, it's brilliant. And I mean, I'll catch up with you. It'll just take me about 20 years. But yeah, seriously, credit where it's due. Is it okay? Let's dig into international teaching, right? So Europe now. Okay, if you want to go to Europe, obviously Brexit has made a massive difference to things, in the sense that you now need a visa, whereas before you could just, I mean, when I had my first stint in Spain in 2016, I just got in my car in the northwest, piled it high with cutlery and other things. And people laughed when I brought cutlery. I didn't see that as a big issue. My car had Marks and Spencer cutlery in it. I got absolutely ribbed for it when I arrived there, but don't care. So packed my car with all my possessions, which wasn't very much, and drove, got on the ferry, came off the ferry, rocked up in Spain, and that was it. Right? The paperwork was like minimal. It was like in Spain, you have to get something called a NIA. So you get this card, you get this, and that was it, pretty much. A couple of visits to an office. Now, second time round, huge visa process. If you get a full-time teaching job in Europe, then the school will do it for you. But there are just, I mean, even in the few schools I know of, there's lots and lots of delays to people's visa processes. This stuff is, and a lot of it, because it's new, relatively new, you're talking 2020, 2021, 2022. It's, I don't think the authorities themselves know the processes as well as they should. And then that leads to problems.
It's definitely, I think you're starting to allude to it there a little bit. I think when you start thinking about teaching abroad, I think you need to have really clearly in your mind a year before going, right, okay, we're going to go. And we need to start getting this in place pretty soon, because you're right. I mean, obviously it depends on each country, but the visa process for each country can really take a long time. I think, we've experienced it with a few colleagues here in Spain, and it takes a long time, months, 6 months for some people to get visas. So you don't want to be leaving it too late. You get a job and then you can't start until October, November, December. That is a really tough initiation. It's tough starting a school if you leave it that late.
Yeah, every country's got its own sort of requirements as well, its own offices and so on. If you don't, I mean, one piece of advice I would probably give somebody having been in this process myself would be to chase yourself. Don't just go, the school's dealing with it. Let them deal with it. It's almost like I think you have to be on it as much as anything.
Get a head start on your fresh start with Bloomsbury Education. With 30% off all our books till the end of September, this back-to-school sale is your chance to stock up on CPD titles, classroom resource banks, lesson ideas, and practical solutions to every teacher's pain points. Browse titles on sale from the Like a Ninja series, The Week Junior, and Let's Talk picture books. Perfect for the new school year. From leadership to inclusivity and maths to mental health, Bloomsbury Education has books for every step of your teaching journey. Welcome back to school at bloomsbury.com/back to school sale.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Capel Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to capelprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles.
And sort of know the process. I'm sort of lucky because my partner's really came out here with me and she's well up on the process, so she was helping in terms of being on it. But if you're not on with the process, you don't know what you're doing, then you're putting a lot of trust in other people to do it, really. Jeff, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on visa issues or work permits and all that stuff.
Yeah, I started just at the transition stage. So as I say, just when the Belgium was introducing for British citizens something called an M card, which was kind of like a halfway house, and you could that's the card that I've got. After 5 years, I get permanent citizenship this year. Hopefully that will be good, and I'll be back in the EU. What we've seen within our school system is a lot more Irish teachers taking on the positions of English native speakers, because we forget, and I hope I'm not, it's something to say here, but English native speakers are still really valued. They're valued within our system. They're valued, of course. They're not the only. It's not the biggest characteristic in an English teacher by far, but it's kind of we need these native teachers within the system sometimes as well. And so as schools are trying the hardest to sort out this visa process. I know that, but you might have to look through your heritage and find an Irish relative. Might make it the quickest way to do it at the moment.
Yeah. I think as well that's a real challenge for school leaders in Europe is it's that I guess then a natural part of the process would if you for example work in a British international school, then a lot of the parents expect the teachers, at least a proportion of them, to be from Britain, right? Because for right or wrong, they consider that education part of the package of what they're getting. Whereas what you're now seeing is really a lot of schools are filling in the gaps with people who have dual nationality, who came to Europe pre-Brexit, so have got the sort of the right to be there permanently without a visa, and so on. Right, they're doing everything they can, to try and do that. So it's a tough environment now to do it, and that's for getting the paperwork for the individual as well. However, what if you were leaving now to go to the place you're in now? What would you pack and what would you leave behind?
Ooh.
I wouldn't.
Go on, Simon.
I wouldn't take my cutlery. I wouldn't bother taking my cutlery in the car. It was like what was I thinking? I could have just.
I'll tell you one thing that I love here in Spain is the fashion. I will be honest, because the clothes here, the fashion here is very good. So I'd probably take less clothes, because I know that when I come here, I'm going to be able to dress really well. So that's probably one thing I would definitely take less of.
Yeah.
Apart from that, everything else, laptop, computer, all your tech and stuff like that, you're going to need. But obviously, it depends on each country. But I mean, for me, the fashion here in Spain is pretty good. So I would definitely buy more clothes before when I get here.
Putting it a different way, and something I definitely wouldn't take with me clothes-wise, were all the ties and shirts that I had from England. I've got I don't know, 30 ties in the cupboard down there that haven't been touched now for 5 years. My first.
I wear a tie. I always wear a tie. Right,
I
so
know.
you can send them to me. I'll have them. Just to me.
But I always remember my first day. My first day in this school in Brussels. I was walking down the corridor. I had French all written on my hand. You know, all phrases in French up on my hand. You know, and a little bit of Dutch as well. And I had this encounter with this teacher where we were like. Looking for this room, and I was dressed in this three-piece suit. I had a waistcoat on, I had a nice little tie, all color coordinated, and I went in, and like nobody was even in ties. Never mind, no, half of them weren't even in shirts, you know. And I just stood out like anything. A week later, I went down to a two-piece. Week after that, I was like probably how I am, a shirt and trousers, and now I rock up in Bradford City tops, England tops, whatever. It literally is such an easygoing system for clothes, and I love that as well. And it's that it's really interesting because again, a lot of people listening are within the English system, or the British system, and it's really foreign for the teachers that we work with over here that there is an expectation of a tie and there is expectations on the students, and they just can't get their heads around it. As much as we can't understand somebody turning up in Bradford City top, they can't understand how it would improve my teaching if I wore a tie. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, in the US, I guess it would be similar. In countries where they don't have uniforms, right? I guess that would be similar. And yeah, expectations on staff. I mean, again, though, I guess it depends on the type of school you work in, because there is that element of in a British international, part of what they want to see, I guess some of the parents might be that approach to things, because they want to see that. They want to see, you know, the teachers with the tie and the suit on, the students all in very traditional uniforms. Right, and even the colours and the way it's all sort of set up.
I think from my experience when I was in Madrid, like when I'd go, we'd obviously do loads of fixtures against different schools and stuff like that. And obviously now with my school in Coruña, I think generally the consensus that I've kind of seen and heard is normally the SLT staff are normally the ones that are more so kind of suited and booted, if you like, and then after that it's much more casual. It's that sort of smart casual sort of look. But my old coordinator, key stage coordinator in Madrid, was tie, suit, and everything. The head teacher with tie, suit, and fully suited and booted. But the rest of the staff, it was a lot more sort of smart casual. So, I think, like you say, there, the parents would have a certain level of expectation on the school, and I think that's probably more so a bit more for the staff who are in those more sort of leadership roles, as opposed to the staff. I think there's definitely a more favourable view that teachers are a little bit more in that sort of smart casual sort of approach.
Spot on. I mean, if you walk around, it's interesting, the uniform thing, and I sort of agree with what you're saying. Another interesting one is tattoos, and things like that. And I think every country or culture's probably got a different view on different things, haven't they, with regards to that. One of the things I wanted to touch on, and this is one for people who are looking for jobs, right? If you want a cash cow, right, where'd you go? You probably aren't going to go to Europe. Although, it depends which country in Europe. Because, for example, if you were to go to France, Switzerland, maybe some of the Low Countries, maybe sort of Norway, Denmark, things might be better, than average for Europe, right? But generally speaking, if your thing is, I want to go abroad for 2 years, I want to earn a heck of a lot of money, and then I'll go home once I've saved enough for a deposit. If that's your objective, then you're probably going to be looking at Dubai, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends who are out there now. One is literally just messaging me the other day about looking to go out to Middle East, and it's exactly that sort of viewpoint. It's a case of You know, I got a friend that was teaching in the primary school for 15 years, same primary school for 15 years, wanted a bit of a change, was looking at, you know, somewhere like Dubai as a chance to go and to earn some extra money. I've got another teacher who's looking to go out there within the next few weeks with that view, a little bit of a break from England to go for 2-3 years to earn some good money and to come back. So I think that's definitely, you know, on the mind of a lot of teachers to do that for sure.
Also, you can look at maybe Singapore, China as it was, although I think there's some issues there in terms of, I think, more to, you know, the trend is away from China. India is an emerging market, and because the cost of living is low in India, you know, the salaries are quite good in India from what I can see. Obviously, that's a big thing you've got to do. You've got to compare the salary to the cost of living. So, for example, I know somebody who went out to Dubai, and the flat that they got was unfurnished. And to actually kit out the flat was really expensive. Now, I know that's like a one-off payment. It's not so, you know, but it is something they hadn't considered, is the cost of certain things like big ticket items and so on. And but ultimately, from a financial point of view, you're getting a tax-free salary. You know, it's one of them where, you know, you're getting lots of benefits. So from a financial point of view, it's pretty much a win-win. However, this is only me speaking as me, personal opinion only. I sort of was looking beyond that. So, for example, weather-wise, being as ginger as I am, the idea of a scorching sun on my tomato head was something that, you know, was sort of daunting. I wasn't a massive fan of that, and I just don't respond well to scorching heat anyway. Sort of the idea of you live in a complex, like a flat complex. You, on a Friday or Saturday, you get a taxi from your flat complex, or you've got a rented car, and you drive to a sort of expat bar that's really nice, or maybe a big hotel complex that's really nice with a big swimming pool, maybe some private beaches, and then you drive home.
I think there's a big difference. I think it's a really
stereotype, by the way. That's a stereotype, but this is what I was thinking about at the time. I was thinking that sort of being able to go out and just like engage with, I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see if you look at single teachers, if you like, and families, where, you know, if you were to leave England now, where would people go? Like, before I decided to go to Spain, I did a lot of research in terms of teaching in Australia. So I currently actually have active registration to teach in Australia, in Queensland, because you could actually apply abroad outside of Australia for teaching registration in Queensland. All the states are different. So I think in New South Wales, for example, you actually have to be based there when you apply. But I actually applied for Queensland because you can do it outside the country. You have to send all your documents before, get them all stamped by your current school, have all of that certified. But I think it obviously comes down to a little bit, are you going on your own, or are you going with a family? I think a little bit what you said before, I think salaries in Australia, for example, are really good. Obviously, the cost of living in Australia is also high-ish, but again, it depends on the state. So, for example, if you wanted a decent route into Australia and you looked at somewhere like South Australia, like Adelaide, or somewhere like Perth, those places are much more affordable. And with teaching salaries, if you're looking at a sort of a base teaching salary for new teachers, I think it's roughly about 90,000 a year. Then as soon as you start bolting on years of experience, you're looking at 100, 110, 120. As soon as you get into responsibilities for Australia, you're looking at over 120, 130, 140,000. And if you pick one of the less occupied states, somewhere like Western Australia, Perth, Southern Australia, Adelaide, maybe even Queensland and Brisbane, the salaries really do go very far. And I have a permanent visa because as a teacher, it's much easier to get permanent residency visas as a teacher, which is a really good way to then be able to have the opportunity to get on the housing market with much less restrictions when you've got a PR visa. But Australia is definitely somewhere which, if you haven't got the time or your life is really busy and you don't want to try and learn a different language, Australia lifestyle, what we were talking about before, weather, teaching out there is, I was talking to one teacher out there before, and it would get to like half an hour as soon as the teaching day finishes. And if you hadn't left the building, the head teacher would come round. And if you're still in the room, they'd be like, why are you still here? Get home. So they're really looking after people, because I think, and I think there's obviously many debates about teaching in England and teaching abroad and why people would do it. And I think, that sort of work-life balance, and when you've got people coming around and treating teachers in that way to say, look, it's time, you need to go. I think, plus the lifestyle in Australia is very, very good. So teaching out in Asia and Australasia is definitely something that is a great opportunity for teachers.
The only one with that, I think, which is one you'd need to consider carefully, would be family, homesickness, being able to go back easily, and quickly if you wanted to. And I think that's one thing that sometimes puts people off.
It is a challenge, yeah. I mean, the holidays are good, though. As teachers, we know the holidays are not bad, especially working abroad.
And as you said, the pay in Australia is pretty good in relative terms. So you would be getting that premium if you did need to fly and stuff. It depends also if you enjoy flying. I hate long-haul flying. Some people don't mind it or care about it. I personally just hate it. Doing it regularly, I'd hate it. Let's see if we got Megan. Megan, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I am here. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm in Africa. That explains my internet, I hope. I'm in South Africa at the moment, so I'm just struggling with having a video call, so I apologize. But yeah, please ask me questions quickly before I disappear again.
Yeah, well, tell us, Megan, about your experience I'm particularly interested because we have this European experience between the three of us. You've done Japan and you're now in Namibia. So tell us about Japan. Give us an overview on Japan, what that was like in terms of salary, in terms of the lifestyle, in terms of the school and all that sort of stuff, if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Japan's salary, I was at one of those sort of British school franchises out in Japan. And so the salary was very generous. It was much better than my salary was in Brussels before. I didn't have a package in Brussels, whereas this came with flight every year, your flight out, housing allowance, all of those sort of brilliant benefits that the larger schools can provide. Quality of living was fantastic. I loved Japan. I'm a real karaoke fan, so I really found my sort of hobby there. I think work-life balance was okay. The days were very long. They were longer for the children. And then, quality of life was good. I'm disappearing again. What else? Yeah, I loved Japan. I think it was a different type of school. Belgium was a very small school. This was a big kind of school that came with expectations. It was sort of a classic British private school with sort of all the pros and cons that come with that. And I think that the important thing about moving around internationally and to different school types is that you find the one that works for you. And that wasn't the type of school that I felt that I wanted to be in long term. I prefer a sort of smaller, more intimate school. And now I'm here I'm not here in Namibia at the moment, but I am working in Namibia at the moment at a very different type of school there as well, with a much less generous package and salary and so on, but I'm much happier. So I think, it's different strokes for different folks.
I mean, again, we were sort of touching on, Megan, the cost of living versus salary. So what we're in Japan, what was that like the salary versus cost of living?
So the salary was very good. So I don't want to say just a teacher, but I was just a classroom secondary teacher in Japan, and my salary was 700,000 yen or something, which is very, very good. And so you could sort of like live a very bougie, you could live the life that you could enjoy. Again, it's just me, so I don't have to worry about paying for anybody else. I think things were expensive. It was central Tokyo, so obviously things were more expensive there than they would have been in rural Japan, but not expensive in terms of the UK. So there was always a shock going back for Christmas and paying £15 for gin and tonic when I just paid like nothing, you know. I've been paying nothing for it in the term time. So I think the cost.
We got it. Megan's
Belgium was more expensive.
Yeah, we got it, Megan. Right. Okay, perfect. Well, Jeff, differences in curriculum. So I mean, when you're looking at a school to go, I don't know anything about IB. Has anybody taught IB?
No.
No. Some schools are IB.
Yes.
Oh, Megan's done IB. What's IB like? Because I've heard it's a lot of work. Is that fair?
Yes, it's different, very different. I prefer the A-level to DP and things like that. IB is brilliant. Lots of creative freedom for teachers. I think that I love the sort of idea that they had to do community outreach and they had to come up with their own, I can't remember what it was called now, but they had to do their own project and like educate each other on something or do charity work or do something. But that service in action, that's what service in action. So there were lots of elements of it that I enjoyed. It was much more free in terms of what you could teach for your curriculum. They just said, cover these skills and you could teach any text you wanted. It wasn't like the GCSE, which is very prescriptive. But I think that in the international world, you have teachers that aren't always as experienced or haven't got curriculum planning skills or whatever. So the problem is when there's too much freedom and not enough structure and guidance, that can also be a negative, I think. But there were real parts of it that I enjoyed about it. Yeah.
I must admit, my experience of international education, both in the schools I've worked in, but also just around the network, it is an eclectic sort of bunch of characters I find on the international circuit. You know, I mean, I remember somebody said to me once, and I think there's an element of truth in this, that a lot of international teachers are running away from something, just maybe reality or something. But
Brexit.
Of course, we're not in that bracket. We're all really solid.
I was running to my wife. I was coming to my wife's family.
There you go. I know, Jeff. I know you're a solid human being. Don't worry, you don't have to defend yourself. But certainly, you definitely get more a higher capacity of more colourful characters, I think, on the international circuit than you do in schools in the UK. As Megan just mentioned, I think you need to be a little bit careful with sort of the wild, wild west international schools. You know, when you're looking for a job, has it been accredited? How long has the school existed for? Who owns the school? Right? So, for example, you don't want to be in a position where they're going to withhold your salary. And I'm being serious. You don't want to be in a position where they go, we're not happy with what you're doing. We're just not going to pay you. You know, I think doing that due diligence, there's some things you will not be able to know before you go, right? But there's certain things you can do to find out, does this school belong to a group of schools? Is it privately owned or is it, you know, who owns it? Is it family owned? You know, what other jobs have that family done and how did they come to get this school? And, you know, and then looking at, I guess, also the sort of the staff in terms of like, what is the professional culture at the school? Now, to be fair, it's quite difficult to judge that in advance of going there. But of course, there are things you can do just from researching who works there. I mean, when I realised I was going to work with Simon, I nearly fell off my chair. It was just the biggest privilege of my career. But obviously, if you're going to look at things like that, I think it's important just to know that it's not, to be blunt, a wild west sort of school where there's literally anything goes. Right?
Do you know what I think?
You're be on your own out there. You're not going to be in a union potentially. You're not going to have people to protect you and help you. Often you will, because there'll be some good people there. But if there isn't, could be a problem.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And one thing I've always tried to do, I've done this in my current school now, when I was in Madrid and even before that, I think it's really important that you go and visit. Like if you're planning on going somewhere, having those pre-visits done to not only know the city or the town or wherever you're looking to go, but also do a visit to the school before, it obviously helps if you've got a bit of a plan in place to go, right, in a year's time or 2 years' time, I'm thinking about going here. I'd done pre-visits at my current school 2-3 years ago. And I got a bit of a feel for the school, a bit of a feel for the area. So I knew some people, I knew a little bit about the history. And I think that sort of transition into a new school then helps because you've already got some familiar faces that people already know that you've been here before. You can ask some questions when you're here and you just ease some of those doubts or questions that maybe you have before. I think for me, that's probably the biggest bit of advice I'd ever give a teacher looking to go abroad is the questions would be, have you already been to that country? Do you know the culture? Do you know some bits of a language? Have you been to the city? Do you know about it? Do you like it? I know a few people that have just applied for different jobs in different countries out of the blue, and it hasn't worked out because it's not a fit for them. So for me, I always try and do those pre-visits really far in advance because I want to know if this is actually the path I want to take. And I think for those teachers that are looking to take the leap and go abroad, if you're thinking about going somewhere, have a holiday first, visit the school, do your research before, and really know if it's somewhere that you want to consider. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. What about? Do you think that? And this is an interesting one. Do you think there is a lack of CPD compared to a lack of a CPD culture in international schools as opposed to schools in the UK and England?
I think what I would say is time is really the flexibility in the free time and how much time is taken from the teachers, I think is really carefully monitored being abroad and not putting too much time on. I know when I was in England teaching, we done morning CPDs, afternoon CPDs. It was busy, really busy. You had tasks to do during the weeks as well. It was really full on. Where here, I wouldn't say that has less importance because it still has the same importance, but it's difficult to put those into time. Like in my previous school in Madrid, we had to come in 5 Saturdays during the year. One was for like a social gathering with parents as like a charity day, and the other 4 were CPD Saturdays, if you like. And when I left that school, they just changed it to remove the Saturdays to put them into either like pre-day task, like morning task, or some afternoon CPD to take away the Saturday. So I think there's that definite conscious approach to not bombard teachers being abroad. That's my experience anyway.
I find within my system as well, it's completely different. We used to have like weekly CPD sessions in Essex, definitely like 2 hours a week, etc. As you say, Simon, like mornings, etc. Journal articles to read every week. It is completely different within the system that I'm in now. Completely different. It's different. It's everything that I've known about teaching has been turned on its head in the system, and it's absolute chalk and cheese. And teachers within this European school system are most of them have master's degrees already. I don't know if you see this within some of the system within the schools that you're in as well. You know, a lot of the teachers internationally do a master's degree beforehand, and there isn't as much pedagogical learning or sessions. But for example, because we've got more free time, because we have a better work-life balance, we focus a lot within my system linguistically. You know, I am constantly learning every day, different languages every day, like getting challenges. I get emails in French, I get emails in German, I speak Dutch to my secretary. I speak, I go into the staff room. I've been doing Finnish lessons for over the last year as well. I put up in the newsletter that I was happy. We've got 320 teachers in our school, and I put out in the newsletter that I was happy to do, because I had like extra free, not used to it. On Friday I had one lesson. No, there's no form times, no meetings, department meetings twice a year. And so I said, I want to give something back. And so I said, if teachers want to have an English lesson, all the second, third language English teachers speakers of English, come and have a lesson. Also, I'm happy to do some. Out of the 320 teachers, I had 100 teachers say, like join up to the Teams group, and I had classes of 30 teachers in between their timetable coming in. Could you imagine in England saying, I'm good at my subject. If you've got a free period, come down to my class and I'll teach you. It'd be like tumbleweeds for the next hour.
That's the biggest difference. Megan, anything on that? I mean, it's interesting because we're talking about CPD. We're also talking about time within timetables, because, the schools I've worked in internationally, and you guys too, in the UK, in England, you have maybe 10% PPA statutory. You might get more than that. You might end up with between 10 and 20% if you're lucky. That's for obviously a full-time classroom teacher. If you move up the scale, you might get more free periods, but obviously you've got other responsibilities as well. Internationally, and I know Freya posted she's over in where is she, Vietnam. She posted her timetable the other week. She had extra responsibilities, but the teaching part was around, I think from looking at it was maybe like 50% or something, 40%, 50%. And Jeff, I think you posted your timetable 2 days ago. That looked about, what is it, 60? 70?
What, free time?
This is contact time within the timetable. So how many lessons you actually have within there versus freeze?
Yeah. We have, about, I would say 40 or 50%. Yeah, it was. Yeah. But can I just say something quite specific about the contract that I'm under, which makes a massive difference. Again, it may be in some other international schools as well. My salary is not a yearly salary. It's not a set amount that I get at the end of the year. I literally get paid per session that I teach per month. It's an approximate. And this is the same contract in all the dozens and dozens of schools within this. But so, for example, it's approximately, say, 140 euros per 45-minute session per month. So if I just teach one lesson, 140. If I just teach 45 minutes, a week, I will get, say, 140 at the end of the month. Imagine that with a 20, of course, before tax. But so the interesting thing is that any responsibilities we take on in school, it's determined in sessions. So, for example, I get 12 sessions for my upper school management. So, etc. You can do trips. You can do different responsibilities. The coordinators of the subject get paid lessons for it. And we also, if you do anything extra, if you teach any other lesson apart from that, you get paid for it as well. So, for example, if you do a cover lesson or a placement lesson, you put your slip in and you'll get paid for that time that you do. If you do extra marking for an absent teacher. So my salary, and this is a plus and a negative, my salary over the last 5 years has gone all over the place. When I applied for a mortgage, they were like, what is going on here? Because month by month, I can go up. when I was getting married, I had like I was trying to do as many cover lessons as I could, to pay for the wedding. And on a Friday morning, I just did like four replacement lessons in the morning, if that opportunity is. And I was getting paid, for each one towards it. So, like, it's a positive, but it's also a negative because, if the sessions aren't available or you can't, and that's the problem within the system I have, is sometimes the sessions can go down. There's fewer students taking this course, or for example.
But that would be the same in any international school, wouldn't it? That the numbers could go down based on a whole range of different reasons. The salaries in Spain are not what you're describing, Jeff. But yeah, it's different world there.
The tax is heavy in Belgium. It's about 50% tax. Yeah,
50%. Do you reckon it's like 40?
Well, yeah, at the upper end. Yeah, definitely. You can get hammered with the tax.
That's why you've got a secretary, isn't it, Jeff? My secretary deals with my finances. It's some lifestyle you've got there, Jeff, isn't it? Hey?
No.
Megan, anything you want to add in on anything we've said?
I mean, I think it's one of the biggest factors that would stop me returning to the UK is like, oh gosh, I don't think I could actually function with the sort of 2 PPAs that you used to have in the state school system. I just don't know how I did it now, looking back, and still managed to function. But I just guess you just don't have a life outside of it. You're marking every evening, weekends, and especially like English secondary teachers, just rough. But now looking at it sort of from the other side of things, I've been looking at timetabling for next academic year, and we've agreed a cap of 20 hours, so 20 lessons per teacher per week. So that's out of 30. So that's a really nice timetable, and most teachers won't reach that. So you get a lot of free time, a lot of planning and prep, but I also agree that it's not always used. It's not used for CPD. We don't really have that. We're trying to put that into place. It's very different out in Namibia, of course, because there's very little in terms of what's already going on. Teaching qualifications are sort of more of like a BTEC equivalent. So you do that, and then but you haven't actually got maybe the degree behind you or whatever. So it's a different approach. Or you get people coming in from careers who then want to teach but don't have the kind of teaching skill then. So it's tricky, but we're looking into setting up like a community teacher training hub in our school and things, so putting things into place. But yeah, I think timetabling wise, so much lighter than anywhere else, and the work-life balance is insane. I mean, I live across the road from my school now, so I just pop home for my PPAs or take the dog out. So you can live.
That was the biggest change for me. Sorry to interrupt. That was the biggest change for me, was being able to go home on a free period. Still blows my mind.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, it depends where you live, I suppose, doesn't it? The one I wanted to ask in a minute, before we do that, thanks Hachette Learning for supporting this show. Really appreciate it. Please visit hachetteLearning.com. That's with a double T. Check out their collection of books. We're talking about CPD. Can't go wrong at Hachette Learning. Go on, visit them. And thanks very much for supporting all Teachers Talk radio shows. I wanted to ask you guys about making friends abroad, connecting with people abroad and developing a community and of people and stuff like that. Simon, I'll start with you on that. Is that something that you think is a challenge, or do you think it's...
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went about it with a very specific outlook, because actually when I first came here, one of my big personal goals was to learn Spanish. And I knew that if I spent more time with people at school, my Spanish was not going to improve. I do a lot of sport and football outside of my commitments with school. And I just wanted to spend a lot of time really understanding the culture better and the language better. So I tried not to socialise too much with the people at school, because I wanted to try and socialise more with people in Madrid. So that would be going to spend time, trying to share time with people at sports clubs, gyms, and within the football clubs that I did some work in, and really try to speed through and work really hard at, my linguistic skills in terms of Spanish, understanding the culture. Because I think if you really want to better understand all of that, you really need to buy into actually being there. I think it's very easy to work in an international school and be very isolated to actually where you're actually at and the location that you're in. And I think you can lose so much valuable experience by not going out and living that. Obviously, you've got the perks of, okay, you live in wherever it is, you go out with the people from school, and you kind of have the opportunity to live in your little bubble at school. That was never something I wanted to do. I always wanted to better understand the language, the culture, and work on my hobbies outside of teaching. And I think for me, that gives you a better understanding of so much more about where you're living. And I think that then sets you up to have more success mid and long term in where you're at. Because if you end up having problems, if the electricity goes, if I have a problem with the car, okay, I know places, I can speak the language, I don't feel too nervous about going somewhere. Obviously, in those first few weeks and months, you really need to push yourself out of your comfort zone to do those things. And you go through tricky and tough moments in terms of language. Obviously, you told me a funny story about one time that you had something going on in Coruña, but those things happen, and I think those experiences really make.
I dread to think what that story was. I'm really glad you didn't. We're not
going to share it.
Good.
Yeah, I know.
Get a head start on your fresh start with Bloomsbury Education. With 30% off all our books till the end of September, this back-to-school sale is your chance to stock up on CPD titles, classroom resource banks, lesson ideas, and practical solutions to every teacher's pain points. Browse titles on sale from the Like a Ninja series, The Week Junior, and Let's Talk picture books. Perfect for the new school year. From leadership to inclusivity and maths to mental health, Bloomsbury Education has books for every step of your teaching journey. Welcome back to school at bloomsbury.com/back-to-school sale.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Kapow Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to kapowprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles.
But those are the things that I think, when you move abroad, I think you have to have the outlook that you're really going to buy into the culture, the language, and the community that you're in. I think it's very easy to just stay in your bubble. And that's one thing that I would really want to push to people that are looking to go abroad is really spend time with your colleagues. I did that as well, but really, really spend a lot of time getting to know the place you're at, learn a language, learn the culture, and try to make friends in the location you're going. And that can be tough. I think Megan.
I was going to say, because you've got a really positive attitude, Simon, to everything you do, and you were very much a doer, right? Whereas me, on the other hand, it's sort of, it's quite tough to. I agree with everything you said. I just think it's tough to sometimes make friends with sort of the locals and get some really good, proper, friendships. I don't mean like acquaintances is easy. Acquaintances, I think you can do it with a little bit of effort, but you want to really try and make some friends. And funnily enough, in the 3 international experiences I've had, the friends I've made locally who haven't been colleagues haven't been from the country. Right, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, now I've got some good friends who are Argentinian, right? They're not from, that didn't happen on purpose. It's just the way it sort of goes. And I guess because you're part of that international set, you will. It's probably more likely you're going to mix with the international set in that community rather than the locals. And obviously, you, like you say, it's also breaking down those barriers and getting involved in maybe friendship groups that are already set.
But that's so enriching. That is something that you would just not have in England. It's so personally enriching, life enriching. Like it's so valuable. Those experiences are just, they change your outlook on life. The knowledge and experience you get from sharing from people from Argentina, from Colombia, from Norway, from Japan, all of these countries, you pick up so much. It's such a, it really does humble you and give you so many experiences and knowledge. And I think that for me as an international teacher, when I liaise and I work with my students, just I feel has made me such a better teacher and a person by putting myself in those situations. For me, it's been invaluable.
Sure, totally agree. Megan, sort of friends, connections, international, do you find it a bit harder or easier?
I agree. I think it's important to get out of the bubble. It's so much easier said than done, though. Like I really, I tried when I first moved to Belgium to go to these, like I was inspired by Freya, actually. I saw her tweet and she was like off to an expat event. And so I was like, I should go to one of those. Tried that, absolutely hated it. I'm not really sort of an extroverted, bubbly personality at all. So I was just like in my worst nightmare trying to talk to people at an expat party. It was not my scene at all. And then I sort of fell into the trap of just people from school. And then it was a British school. So of course we were all Brits or from all expats. So that was Belgium. Japan, much the same, like just people from school. The school was brilliant, actually, like set up loads of activities and day trips for us all to do to bond together. And then because the days were long and you don't speak Japanese, and it's really hard to learn, you kind of end up in that bubble again. I think Namibia is the first where I've got sort of like local friends, but that's really just because the town I'm in is so small. It's only 18,000 people. The minute I moved there, everybody already knew who I was and what was going on. So everyone sort of went out of their way to kind of meet me, I suppose, because I was a novelty joining this desert village type thing. So it was different, but I think I really have not found it easy to find local friends. The only locals I have met have been like through dating rather than friendships. I think it's really hard to just walk in somewhere and try and strike up a friendship. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a skill I've yet to sort of pick up, but it's probably language barrier. I'm not.
Sports clubs are good.
A linguist.
You know, I've met quite a few people here from playing football at a very, very bad standard. You know, I've met some really good people through that. Also, the meetups are good. You know, if you can go to a meetup, because there are locals sometimes at the meetups as well, so that's quite good. And obviously, there's an app. There's various apps you can get to access meetups and pretty much anywhere in the world now. I think all those things are good. But yeah, sometimes it is maybe just a case of going out and talking to people, like Simon was saying. But it is difficult, though. I think, as Megan said, it's hard if you're working full time in an international school. Sometimes you can work quite long hours, even though you've got a lot of PPA. Maybe you get home, you know, you're tired. It's the same thing teaching anywhere. You don't want to go out. You don't want to meet people. You don't even want to talk, actually. You just want to go into a room and watch a movie. And then suddenly you're not learning a language. You're not integrating. And then 5 months has passed and suddenly you haven't done anything. And then you go, oh, I've been here a year. I'm surviving without it. I'll just carry on how I am. And then, you know, and then suddenly you're 2-3 years there and you've got nothing. So sometimes you've got to have that level of commitment. And that's why I admire Simon with his language learning. Do admire that because it's not easy and you've got to have a level of commitment and, you know, to be able to do that over time. But also, I suppose you've got to be kind to yourself and say, okay, you're not going to be able to do that maybe in 6 months. You might not even be able to do it in 18 months, but having that sort of 5-year plan or whatever, 3, 4, 5-year plan and saying, okay, I'm going to stay committed, but it's probably going to take me a while to do this is probably
it's the adjustment as well, because in a brand new country, and you're sort of everything is a challenge. So it's like, oh, first I must learn how to pay my bills, and then I must learn how to do this. And so you sort of put it on the back burner a bit, and then you've already got your friendship group built naturally around you because of work. And so it's harder to see the necessity to put yourself out there, but you should, absolutely. But sometimes you choose the easy life, don't you? Because it's already like a mission to go to the shop and find the right milk. And so why would you then also challenge yourself and make life more stressful in another way? So I think that's part and parcel.
Sure. Coming towards the end, a few little bits just to sort of finish off on that I think are interesting. So I was going to ask about sort of career progression abroad. Do you think it's easier or harder or just the same? Jeff, do you want to start off on that?
Again, depends on the school, depends on the system. The system that I'm within is very flat. So there are, as I said, within the school, 320 teachers, something like this. But yet there's only, I don't know, the SLT is like five or something. You know, I look at my school in Essex that had 1,200 students, and you know, I had 50 assistant heads, you know, and then we come to here, and so it's very flat. But again, this is another debate, but it's about career progression. It doesn't always have to be through the academic pastoral route straight up. Career progression for me is having all that free time for me to write my novel and become, you know, and become a and do my side hustle that then becomes my career progression or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Has that worked yet, Jeff? Has it worked yet?
My best-selling novel.
Yeah.
I put the. I think I'm on 5,000 words. Too busy learning Dutch and French. I'm not as good as Simon walking around with his Spanish coming out. I'm struggling with the yeah. But I would say it really depends on the school. As I say, because my progression now has gone up to kind of, I guess the equivalent of my role now probably would be like an assistant head type role. Kind of something like that, but but it's as I say, it's very much funneled. So, but salary wise, maybe slightly higher stages, but salary wise, you know, I could get more by I could teach 13 periods rather than doing my responsibility of 12 periods. So salary wise, it's not worth it within the system that I'm in to do that. So I think it depends on the school. But I think the biggest thing is you know, is just the cultural enrichment that you get, etc., which is more important for me.
Megan, career progression.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends on the school, but also the person. So people I joined, and the size of the school as well. So there was probably a lot more opportunity in Japan for career progression. The leadership team was massive. It was about 9 people. But obviously you have to be the right fit for the school and kind of the right fit for the roles that are available for your career to progress. I think for me it's come from moving around. Like I tried I thought, you know, if you go to a bigger school, do you take the step down from middle leadership and move to just class teacher again in the hopes that there'll be more opportunity because it's a bigger school? Like it's always tricky to know what the right decision is. I think my career progressions happen just from moving around, but I also think I wouldn't have the opportunities. Like there's no way I would be the head of a secondary school in the UK right now. No way. It's really premature in my career, like to be doing that. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity, but I wouldn't be doing it in Japan, in Belgium. It's because I'm doing it in Namibia. And I'm very aware of that, you know, but I think it's still the same job. So it's good eventually to sort of move across somewhere else. But I think, you have to sort of see what do you want to be doing? Where might that happen for you? And it's very different to the UK where it might take a little bit longer.
I think if you're willing to move, if you're willing to move as an international teacher, you can easily move up very quickly if that's what you want to do. Yeah. You can do 2 years in one school, move to a different school in a different country and get an assistant head there, do 2 years there. And there's not that whole thing of, I mean, that's coming in a little bit with the MPQ qualifications. People are maybe expecting a little bit more from those senior leadership roles. But generally speaking, you can move within 6 to 8 years into pretty senior roles in now you can do that in England, but there are way more hoops to jump through, and it's probably more challenging to be able to move schools in England and adapt to a new school, and also to be able to go through everything you have to go through in England to sustain yourself, to put yourself in a position where you can actually do that. Whereas internationally, you can potentially have a really nice life, a great time, and get the career progression over a relatively short period of time.
Yeah,
is the way I would
That's
look
the
at it.
thing. In the UK, it's whether you want that position, because it's a lot more stress, a lot more hours. Yeah.
All right. Final thing. Common myths versus the realities of teaching abroad. So what do you think are the things that, I'll start with this, what we think the myths are versus the realities. Now, okay, one myth that sort of it's almost like a permanent holiday, right? That you're always sort of, it's almost like everything's a microcosm of a holiday, and there's not necessarily that same structure. That same structure's there. It's just that the workload is generally low, but the hours of work can still be quite high. In fact, yes, I agree with what Jeff said in terms of less twilights, less meetings, less silly stuff, right? But, fundamentally, you're still doing, you're still in the school building for quite considerable amounts of time. You still get knackered. Usually depends on your role, it depends on your responsibilities and so on. But yeah, I mean, one of the things is you will travel more, you will go out more. When I was teaching in the UK, I would never have thought to go out on a Monday to Friday. A Monday to Thursday.
Or something, yeah.
Seriously, even Friday. I was like, if I'm going to go out, it'll be Saturday, because all I want to do on a Friday is takeaway, and that's pretty much watch a movie, and that is pretty much it. Unless there was something happening, Monday to Friday was a write-off. Sunday night was Sunday night dread time. There's no way I wanted to be doing anything on Sunday night apart from sulking and worrying. I'm probably working to get ready for the Monday and the Tuesday, right? So the only time really when I would go out and forget it was probably Saturday daytime, maybe Saturday night. Internationally, I'm not saying you could go out on a night out every night, but you definitely think about that less. It's like, okay, Wednesday, there's a concert. Yeah, I might go to that. Thursday, there's this. Yeah, I might go to that. Monday, there's that. Yeah, I'll go to that. Clubs, football, sports, whatever. I think you more generally got, and so a lot of places, particularly in Europe, have that coffee culture as well, where everyone's out late having a coffee or a beer, whatever time you go out. So you're not going, oh, it'll be dead when I go out after 10. No, it won't. It's just starting after 10 on any night of the week. In Spain, it is anyway. So I think that's a difference for me. Is just your willingness to want to go out and explore and actually have a life, versus England, where everything's focused on your job and on teaching and surviving for another term, right? And then on the holiday you can switch off if you make it that far, right? Whereas I think just the whole thing's different. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think it's more manageable. It's definitely more manageable. I think you definitely feel like you can have more of a balance within your week, within your life, within the work that you do, and you get a chance to enjoy where you're at. I think obviously the biggest challenge that I think people will probably face is depending on where you go, is the difference in salaries depending on different places. That's probably the biggest challenge. Similar to what you said before, I definitely think abroad you've got great opportunities to progress in your career. But like you say, I think you definitely have the chance to live your life better being abroad. There's definitely a better view of that life balance.
If you go to Spain, Italy, Greece, maybe Portugal, you might be looking at a 50% pay cut.
Yeah.
You know, if you're an established teacher who's been teaching for 5 to 10 years in a subject like maths, for example, you could be looking at a 50% pay cut. So that's something that you'd have to work into your thinking, I guess. Megan, anything? Reality versus myths?
Yeah, I think it's not always easy to work abroad. I mean, at the moment, I'm in South Africa because I can't be in Namibia because of visa issues. So I'm actually not able to do my job properly. So there are stresses that come from living abroad that you wouldn't experience in the UK. Like visas are such a pain. It's so expensive initially. The upfront costs are a lot, and a lot of schools expect you to pay those yourself, and then they pay you back later. But you've got to sort of find the money for your initial flight, and visa processes can be expensive, medicals, all the rest of that. But ultimately, I don't think I would still be teaching if I'd stayed in the UK. I think I was miserable, overworked, just like drained, and really not enjoying it. And I would have said, don't be a teacher to anyone that had asked me then. But now I'd be like, yeah, do it. Come and work abroad, and like it's the best thing you'll ever do. You get to see the world. Like I just think that it's not overselling. I genuinely think it's the best decision that I've ever made going abroad. And of course, there are struggles. Every school has its issues and so on. But I just think you can't knock it really. Yeah.
Tom, would you ever work back in England again? Would you ever teach in England?
Well, I was up until last summer.
Oh yeah.
I was for 3 years. However, I've been mostly part-time since 2021. Would I ever work full-time again in England as a classroom teacher? I don't know. Depend on the school. I think I'd struggle to. In my head now, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing I wouldn't do. I would never go back to that mentality again. Never going back to them. So whatever job I'm doing, whatever I'm doing in a school, not in a school, I'm never going back to that mentality again because it'll make you ill, and you've only got one life, and life's too short. So I'm never going back to that mentality. But I do think, would I ever? I find it highly unlikely I'd ever take on a TLR role in England again, like a responsibility, like a leadership role in a full-time capacity in a school in the UK. I find that really hard to imagine. You never say never. Hopefully, if that ever happens, no one will ever come back to this show and click on that bit and post it on LinkedIn or something. But I just can't imagine that being the case. Yeah.
My wife wants to return to England. She'd love to move back to England, and I said, I would never return back to England. I would never teach to teach. I would never return back to England to teach. Yeah. I know. Just need to win the Euro Millions, then we'll have a little cottage in Yorkshire.
Why does she want to go back to England? You don't have to say, but is it to do with England? Or
every place has such massive pluses and negatives. I mean, she finds the English mentality a lot, but I mean, she's from Flanders, and she finds the English a lot more sociable, open, polite. Just the it's the mentality. It's generally the mentality. But she loves England as well. She's a big Anglophile.
Interesting. Cool. All right, guys. I think that is time because literally it's getting dark here, and I forgot to put a light on. As so did Simon. Megan's Wi-Fi is just gone anyway. This is international teaching, guys. This is Jeff's the only one with light in there.
Yeah. The Belgian structure's okay. Yeah.
We had a power cut here a while ago. Don't you forget that, Tom?
Yeah.
I was at school as well. I was at school.
You were at school. I mean, the power cut day was an interesting one. In fact, it went over 2 days, didn't it? Power cut day.
Because we didn't go to school the next day, did we? So
National Power Cut Day.
What a great day!
is interesting. That's what I mean, Megan, you're Namibia, you're going to be having, I remember Tanzania, it was like power cut every week. You know, you were like, it was mad. Just power cuts all the time.
Yeah, and the water as well. Always cutting that
Yeah.
off.
Well, I just drank, when I was out there, I didn't drink any tap water at all. It was bottled water every single time I drank anything. So wouldn't even know. Too risky. Anyways, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. You know, we could have done this over. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 sometime, because there's just so much more we could have got into. But definitely think it's a good one to get people thinking about their international experiences. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Teachers Talk Radio. Special thanks to Hachette Learning for supporting the show this evening. We'll be back in 8 minutes with Chris Wilkinson, who's talking about the use of background music in the classroom. You know, if you're somebody who plays Drake while you're trying to teach Shakespeare, then this is the show for you.
Drakespeare.
If you're more, you know, a sort of Enya person while you're doing your marketing, then this is the one. He's going to look at the research behind music in the classroom, so it should be pretty interesting. So yeah, tune into that. It's on the website. Starts in 8 minutes, and yeah, I'll be back again personally on Monday, and I'm interviewing former Schools Minister Nick Gibb, which could be an interesting one. Nick Gibb, Schools Minister 2010 to 2024. Going to talk about everything that happened in those 14 years. Should be an interesting one, that, guys. A lot went down. So, yeah, be fun. So that's on Monday at 6. So I'll see you then. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.